This is Create. It's a massive mod that completely influences how you play Minecraft and adds a ton of content. Naturally, with a mod this size, you're gonna have some blocks that are completely game-changing and others that are Today I'm going to be ranking every single functional block in the Create mod, based on how versatile, unique, and just generally useful they are. Now, blocks I deem functional follow 3 criteria. Number 1, no blocks that are exclusively used for item or fluid transportation. Number 2, nothing that's only used for stress transportation or production. And finally, I'm not going to be including blocks that are just used for crafting, like the mechanical press or the mixer. Alright, and before we get started, this is my opinion, so don't grill me too hard. In last place, we have the Nozzle. I bet half of you probably didn't even know this block existed. I initially thought this block was used for bulk smelting and washing like the in-case fan, which means it wouldn't even qualify for this list, but no. This thing's only purpose is for pushing and sucking entities, which admittedly is quite funny, but it's super finicky and frustrating to use. I've really never seen anyone utilize this block in their builds. Number 18, the Clockwork Bearing. Being able to make massive working clocks is pretty cool, but not very practical. Before you rush to the comments, I know you can use this thing like a windmill or mechanical bearing, but why would you? It's just more expensive and objectively worse. It is, however, the only bearing out of the 3 to have 2 arms that move independently. That being said, I haven't found a good way to utilize this feature, so I guess it's kind of pointless too. Number 17, the sticker. The sticker will toggle between sticking and unsticking itself to surfaces when powered with redstone. This thing does what it's designed to do great, it's just not that useful. The only use I could come up with for this thing was making a crane, but when I tried it, it was just so clunky. Number 16, the rope pulley. Okay, now, hear me out. The rope pulley will extend and contract a rope when given rotational force. The end will stick to your contraptions, meaning you can pull things. I know a lot of people swear by this thing, and a few years ago I would have ranked it a lot higher, but ever since the elevator pulley was added, I haven't really touched this thing. I feel like the rope pulley was primarily used to make elevators, but now that there's a block that does it so much better, its use cases are just kind of too niche. I will say, the one thing this block has over the elevator pulley is the fact that it's not confined to its floors, meaning if you set this thing up right, you can stop it mid-travel, which could be useful if you're constantly mining at different levels, but since the Create mod focuses so much on automation, there's not really the need to mine that often after setting up your factories anyway. Number 15, the mechanical plow. This thing has 2 uses. The first is completely pointless. I don't know why you'd ever set up a contraption to hoe land, it is so much harder than just manually going through and doing it. However, its second use is kind of where it redeems itself. This thing will break anything that doesn't have a solid collision hitbox, meaning it's very useful for self-sustaining minecart contraptions as it lets you reuse powered rails and redstone torches. Number 14, the mechanical piston. This thing is fine. It works very similarly to the vanilla piston, as in it'll push blocks, but it has one major caveat. In order for the mechanical piston to function properly, it requires a massive fucking pole extending out the back. In my opinion, this just makes the block frustrating to work with, but it definitely has its uses, so it's hard to rank this thing too low. Number 13, the hose pulley. I was debating whether or not to even include this block, but since it's a bit different from the other liquid transporting blocks, I decided why not. This block is used to drain and fill large amounts of fluids, and is primarily used for creating infinite lava sources. But since dripstones were introduced, many people choose a setup like this over the hassle of using this thing, and trust me, it is a hassle to use this thing. Number 12, the contraption controls. This block lets you toggle on and off the machines you have on your contraptions. It's actually quite underrated and I don't see it utilized that much. But if I'm being honest, the only reason this thing made it so high is because it lets me turn my drills and deployers off when I'm making train tracks. Oh yeah, and it's used for elevators. Number 11, the gantry shaft and carriage. I feel like this thing is quite self-explanatory. It's good, I just personally prefer other contraption blocks. Number 10, the mechanical roller. Basically the ultimate track building tool. It'll clear the path, pave your tracks, and terraform for you. Now, I know this thing is technically only really used to make your railways look nice, but the fact that it's so damn easy to use and covers literally everything you'd ever need makes this thing placed so high. Number 9, the elevator pulley. There's not much to say about this block. It makes elevators, and elevators are pretty cool. Number 8, the mechanical harvester. This block will harvest fully grown crops, and additionally it will replant the seed. The mechanical harvester is basically essential for every Create mod playthrough. The only reason it doesn't rank higher is because crops aren't that useful, and the ones that are can be automated through other means. This thing is only really used for crops that grow on farmland. Number 7, the Windmill Bearing. Okay, yes, I know this thing is technically designed to produce stress, however it's so inefficient at its job, nobody actually uses this thing for that reason. When a sufficient amount of wool or sail blocks are attached, this thing will spin perpetually, meaning it's mainly used for early game tree and crop farms. Now, I say early game, but this mod is so unbalanced, even a simple setup like this will produce you more wood than you'll ever need. That's why this thing ranks so high. Oh, and also as an added bonus, it does by nature produce you a tiny bit of stress. Number 6, the mechanical bearing. The mechanical bearing essentially does everything the windmill bearing does and more, but better. The main advantage to this thing over its lessers, is the ability to easily control how much and how long it will spin for. This means in addition to creating spinning farms, it can also be used for contraptions like doors. Number 5, the mechanical saw. This block has one job and it does that job absolutely flawlessly. It also gets extra points for being the only block on this list that's genuinely useful as a tool. When combined with a hand crank, it's great for manually clearing forests and getting large amounts of wood. Number 4, the train controls. Now, I'm using this block in place for trains as a whole. Realistically, trains probably shouldn't be this high, but I just think they make your world so much more interesting and dynamic. Additionally, I just think the Create mod developers handled trains so well, like they're just so intuitive and easy. They may not be the most practical feature, but I think they make the Create mod experience so much better, and for that, I think they deserve 4th place. Number 3, the mechanical drill. This thing mines blocks. I don't really feel the need to justify this pick, I'm sure you can imagine how useful automating mining is. Number 2, the deployer. This block is basically an in-game mouse. It can place things, break things, hit things, you name it, it can do it. So many contraptions use this block in some way or another, and it's simply too versatile to be any lower than 2nd place. Finally, at number 1, the cart assembler. And I'm ready to defend this block with my life. Aside from being objectively the best contraption creating block, allowing you to move your contraptions in whatever way you want, it also gives you the ability to literally pick up entire builds, store them in your inventory, and relocate them. Because of this, the creative potential of this block is absolutely unmatched. You can have mining contraptions on hand at the ready, store SU with windmills, or even keep your entire fucking base in your inventory. In my survival world, I use it to transport large amounts of lava from the nether to the overworld, using the minecart contraption as kind of a movable forward tank. Are you starting to get the potential of this block? Definitely underappreciated. Anyway, that was ranking every single functional block in the Create mod. Let me know if you agree or if I'm way off. Thanks for watching.